Great. Okay. All right, so we are going to look into the nature of Esau, and we're going to see that Chazal's approach to Esau, I'm going to try to argue, is well rooted in the Psukim. And if you think about what Chazal have to say about Esau, I think there are basically 2 points. One point is that Esau is violent and aggressive and impetuous. At the same time, they credit Esau with a good trait also. What Chazal famously credit to Esau, which positive trait?
Kibbud av v'em.
Exactly, kibbud av v'em, honoring his parents. And one of the nice things about Tanakh is that characters tend to not be black and white. In fact, I'm reading a book now by a man named Meir Sternberg called The Poetics of Biblical Narrative. And he keeps emphasizing that point that that Tanakh avoids black and white characterization of characters. Even the good characters make mistakes, and even the bad characters can have redeeming qualities. So let's see how both those emerge from the Psukim. Do we see Esau as A, violent, and B, impetuous? And do we see Esau as someone who honors his parents? So let's go with the first description of Esau and Yaakov. They're born, of course, we'll skip the birth. And then we hear about their professions, and we'll take it from there. So I'm just going to read the Psukim. This is not in your sheet. They get older. Esau, ish yodei tzayid ish sadeh. Esau is a hunter, a man of the field. Yaakov ish tam yoshev olim. And Yaakov is a man of innocence who dwells in tents. Vayahav Yitzchak et Esau ki tzayid befiv. Esau is loved by Yitzchak because something to do with the hunting. We'll get back to that. Rivka ohevet Yaakov. Rivka loves Yaakov. So let's start with the contrast. What's the contrast about their professions, their endeavors? Esau is a hunter, and Yaakov is Yoshev Olim. So what do you guys say? What does Yoshev Olim mean? What do you think it means? So if you look at the top source, this is probably what you heard in elementary school. What does Rashi say? Yeah? Look at the third line of Rashi.
You learn.
There we go. I'm even going to highlight it. You guys see me highlighting now? Yeah, you guys see that? I'm going to make it bold. There it is. Look in bold. What does Rashi say? Yoshev Olim. Olo shel shem, olo shel ever. How does Rashi have it? Which tense is he in? The tense of Torah. He's in the Beit Midrash. So according to Rashi, what's the contrast there? Esau is a hunter, and Yaakov's in the Beit Midrash. Now, for many of us, it might surprise us to accept, it might be difficult to accept the idea that Yaakov's in the Beit Midrash. Might seem a bit anachronistic, right? Maybe there wasn't really a Beit Midrash in biblical times. So there's another approach that you probably did not hear in elementary school, which might be much simpler. Okay, if we go down a little bit to the Rashbam, okay, I'm going to make it bold again. Okay, the Rashbam, Rashi's grandson. One of the great things about Torah, guys, you don't have to agree with your grandfather. Even if your grandfather is Rashi. Okay, the Rashbam does not agree with his grandfather. According to Rashi, Rashbam, what is Yoshev Olim? Roet Esau Nov. Amazing. What does Yoshev Olim mean according to Rashbam? He's a shepherd. What kind of tents is he dwelling in? Not the Beit Midrash of Shem Ve'ever, but the tents of a shepherd. Where do you get this idea from that Olim means a shepherd? Moshe Pirash Eitzel Yoshev Oel Umikneh. Did anyone get that reference? This is a tough one. Where does Sefer Bereshit talk about Yoshev Oel Umikneh?
Yuval, in Bereshit.
Excellent. Who said that? Very good. So we have, in Bereshit, we have 3 sons of Lamech who start new professions, right? One is the father of metalwork. One is the father of music. One is the father of Yoshev Olu Mikneh. Now, Mikneh means cattle. So if you're Yoshev Olu Mikneh, that must mean what's Ohel? It's a tent of a shepherd that accompanies cattle when you have a nomadic shepherd who's traveling from place to place. So Yoshev Olim might mean he's just a shepherd. So let's just sum up what we have here. We have a contrast between Esau and Yaakov. According to Rashi, Yaakov is a yeshiva guy, in contrast to the hunter Esau. According to Rashbam, Yaakov is a shepherd. Now, why would one prefer Rashi to Rashbam? So someone might say that according to Rashi, there's a sharper contrast. We have a hunter versus a yeshiva guy. However, if you think about it for a second, according to Rashbam, there's a very sharp contrast also. What's the sharp contrast? One of the brothers hunts animals, and the other brother takes care of animals. So the contrast is just as sharp in the world of Rashbam. Not only that, one might argue that again, let's think about biblical narrative for a second. We don't always hear about everybody's profession, right? If I ask you, I know what was the profession of, various people in Tanakh, it's not so clear sometimes. Usually a profession is there because it says something about the person. If we look for patterns about shepherds and hunters, who are the other shepherds of Chumash?
Moshe was for a while.
All these good people, right? Avram, Yitzchak, Moshe, right? Shepherds are associated with the most positive characters. Who's the other hunter besides Esau? Other hunter?
Nimrod.
Very good. Excellent. Nimrod. Also someone you often have a negative association with. So I think the Rashbam's shot might be simpler and would work very nicely. We have a Constantine, a hunter, and a shepherd, and we have this association of shepherds with positive moral qualities and a hunter with a more aggressive personality. Okay, so we got part one out of the way. Maybe one argument of Esau being aggressive would be that he's a hunter. Okay, now let's go to Tzayid B'Fiv. Okay, what does Tzayid B'Fiv mean? There's a famous debate, two readings. Either according to Rashi that, okay, I'll highlight again. What does he do according to Rashi? He traps his father with his mouth. He asks him all kinds of questions to show that he really cares about halakha. Like, do you have to tithe salt? So the mouth is Esau's mouth. But what's, of course, a simpler reading of Tzayid B'Fiv? Not that he is trapping his father with his mouth, but Yitzchak loves him because he brings food to his father. That's Tzayid B'Fiv. He takes his trapped food, the animals that he traps, and he feeds his dad dinner. So we mentioned in the beginning that Chazal have Esau as someone who honors his parents. We have one argument on that side. Maybe the fact that he brings food to his father is indicative of his love of and reverence for his parents. Okay, so in the first two psukim, we've got the aggression and being a hunter, either versus the yeshiva guy or versus a shepherd. And we have perhaps the kibbut of aim as manifest in feeding his father. Okay, now let's go ahead into psukim. What happens next? Okay, so then we have Vayazid Yaakov Nazir v'Yavayasem Hasadeh v'Oyev. So Yaakov is making a lentil dish, and Esau is from the field and he's weary. Vayomer Esau Yaakov, what does Esau say? Now listen to the pasuk carefully. Halitenina, give me food, feed me. Min hadom hazeh, from this red concoction. Ki ayef anochi, because I'm tired. Al kain karash shmo adom. Therefore, he's called Adom. Then Yaakov says, "V'yom Yaakov michra kayom et bechorat chali. Sell me your bechorah." V'yom Esav, "Hinei anochi olech lamut v'lama lazi bechorah." I'm going to die anyway. Why do I need the bechorah? Now, one question on the last pasuk is, why does Esau think he's going to die? Why is he going to die? Why should he say, "Hinei anochi olech lamut"? Before we get to that, though, let's go back to the first pasuk. Again, I'm going to read you Esau's words. Think about what questions you might have in this pasuk. What is unusual about Esau's sense? If you had a point to, I think there are two things you could say. What's unusual about saying Halitenina min hadom adom hazeh k'yef anochi? What do you guys say?
Says the word adom twice.
Okay, excellent, Avi Eisenstein. Why is the word adom repeated? That's not normal for speech. And that verb haliteni, does that ring a bell for you? It doesn't sound so familiar. Probably not. It's a very unusual word. Right? Tanakh has got great words for feed me. How about lahachil? Right? Aleph chav lamed is the normal word for feeding. So what's going on with this verb haliteni? Okay, so we're back on the top source again. I'm going to highlight Rashi. Rashi and haliteni says, okay, second here. Okay, in Rashi, eftach pi, I will open my mouth, vishfoch harbei letocha, and pour a ton in. Apparently there's something more, again, it's hard to know because it's a very unusual verb. But for Rashi, there's something more gluttonous about haliteni. Haliteni is just pour it all in there. It's like being at like a hot dog eating contest at a carnival, right? That is haliteni. So again, you'd have a certain kind of aggressive, more boorish behavior on Esau's part in this word haliteni. And now let's get to Avi's point. What about the repetition of the adom, hadom, hazeh? So we're now back in Rashbam, back in Rashi's grandson again. Okay, what does Rashbam say there? Again, highlighting. It says Rashbam hadom hazeh, derech adam hamaher, when someone is in a big hurry, l'sh'ol davar mechavero, kofel et v'rav. Think about when you're in like a frenzy. What we often say, give me food, right? There's a certain frenzied request, and therefore you repeat it in rapid succession. So we'd also have, again, this kind of impetuous quality of Esau. So again, if you read the Pesukim carefully, we might be getting an impression of Esau. right? He's demanding, he's a glutton, right? A certain impatience in his desire for food. Okay, let's go read a little bit more. We'll just finish this little passage. Okay, Vayom Yaakov Yishavli Kayom, swear to me. Oh, sorry, I forgot about the death. But we'll finish the passage. Vayishav Alovim Kor Bechor Yaakov. He sells his Bechorah, last pasuk here. Yaakov Natan Leisev Lechem Nuzira Deshem. Yaakov gives him bread and lentils. Now look at the verbs here. Vayochal, Vayesh, Vayakam, Ve'elach, Vayivez Esevet HaBechorah. 5 verbs in rapid succession. Vayochal, he eats. Vayesh, he drinks. Vayakam, he gets up. Ve'elach, he goes. Vayivez Esevet HaBechorah. He degrades the Bechorah. Now, what would be conveyed here again, guys? You have to think about how the Torah conveys things with very subtle hints. What would you indicate 5 verbs in rapid succession? Again, haste, right? A certain haste to your behavior. 5 verbs in a row. So if haste, what? My daughter's calling out an answer. What do you say, Tila? Okay, Tila says he doesn't have, you guys heard that?
No,
Did you hear her answer?
we didn't.
She says he has no manners. Everything's so fast, right? He doesn't know how to eat with a little bit of patience. Okay, great. But let's go back to why would Esau feel that he's about to die? I mean, why is he in danger? So after when I was a kid, when I read this pasuk, I think I misread it. I thought he feels he's about to die because he's so hungry, right? But then it's hard to imagine he's so hungry he's at death's door. Okay, I want to make another suggestion. Why does Esau feel he's in danger? What about Esau would make him feel he's in danger?
I think it's possible that he doesn't feel in danger. He just says, I'm going to die at some point. I don't really need
Ezra Roberts, what a chiddush. Okay, we'll come back to Ezra in a second. I'm going to give you 2 other approaches. Then we'll come back to what Ezra just said. Ezra, that was excellent. Okay, before we get there, okay, I'm going to highlight Rashi in classic Midrashic fashion says, what's Yaakov nervous about? What's Esau nervous about? That he's going to do the Bechorah. And don't forget, before Cheda Egel, what role did the Bechorim have? They did the Avodah, right? So says Esau, wait, what's this Avodah? This Avodah is dangerous, right? Look at Rashi. Kama Azarot v'onshin mitotuyenba. There are death penalty crimes associated with the Avodah. I'm too nervous. What if I do the wrong thing? What if I end up like Nadav Avihu? I realize it's before Nadav Avihu, but that's why it's dangerous. Now again, Rashi's inserting a lot here. We're assuming Esau knows about the Bechorah. I think this is more midrashic than pshat. Okay, however, what's a simpler approach before we get to Ezra's great chiddush? Think about Esau's profession. Why does Esau think he's going to die?
Because he's a hunter. So
He's a hunter. So indeed, the Rashbam says, B'chol yom ani holech l'tzur chayot bayarot. I'm going to hunt where there are animals. Hamatzim shem dubim v'arayot. Right, there's bears, there's lions. It's a dangerous profession. Therefore, I think that I might die. Okay, but let's keep reading for 1 second. We'll get to Ezra's point in a minute. Says the Rashbam, v'ani mesukan lamut, and therefore I'm in danger. Lama zeli lahamtin. Now we're talking. Why should I hamtin? Wait, what's the claim? I'm only going to get this Bechorah after my father dies. I may not make it that long. I am, after all, a hunter. So you have a certain sense of the danger of his profession of hunting, but you also perhaps have the impatience. I can't wait. Who knows if I'll make it? Now we can go down to Ezra Roberts' approach. Ezra Roberts, that was excellent. Let us go to the Chizkuni. Okay, so when I switch pages, I assume you guys see with me where I am.
Yeah.
The Chizkuni says it's not at all that I'm in danger, but everybody's going to die one day, right? We don't expect immortality. So let us see the Chizkuni. Okay. Hineno chelech lamut Yerushat Eretz Yisrael tulad b'Bechorah. Inheriting land of Israel depends on the Bechorah. I mean, what's the Bechorah? It's the destiny of Avram. And the destiny of Avram goes together with the land of Israel. Now the Chizkuni makes a fascinating point. I want to do a whole tangent on this. Even though it's a half-hour share, I'm going to do a tangent on this. What did the Chizkuni claim? You're only going to get the land when? After 400 years. Where did he get that from? That he's only going to get the land after 400 years?
from the covenant with Abraham.
Avi Eisenstein, very good. Brit Ben Abitarim. Now here's something I never thought of till recently. Avram gets a prophecy in Brit Ben Abitarim. There's going to be 400 years of servitude, and then there's going to be a redemption. And the redemption is going to be great. I don't know if you guys ever thought of this question. Did Avram pass on that information to every generation? That would mean Yitzchak knew that, and Yaakov knew that, and Esau knew that. Now, if they know that, lurking in the background of their consciousness is, oh, we've got this prophecy. Whoever is part of the Avram destiny is going to be in servitude for 400 years, and is then go free. So I want to first explain how the Chizkuni does it now, here, and I'll use the tangent. What does the Chizkuni want to claim? Esau says, I'm not interested in the Bechorah. Why? Because the Bechorah is only going to kick in 400 years from now. And as Ezra Robert said, what does Hinei Hanochi Olech Lamut mean? Not that I'm endangered this second, but I'm a human being. I'm going to die before 400 years. So why should I be interested in something that I'll never collect? So you'd have, again, this impatience, this not thinking about your descendants. I think that would be very much the Esau personality. So before I do my tangent on Chizkuni, let's just set up what we've seen kind of negative aspects of Esau. We certainly have the violence. He's a hunter. Okay, where are we going to have violence later? He's going to want to kill his brother. So you get the violence. And you have kind of this haste and impetuousness. That would be in Halitani, shove the food down my mouth. Adom, the certain passion, he repeats it. The 5 verbs in a row. Vayakam, vayochal, vayesh, vayakam, vayelach, vayivezeh sevet b'chorah. And finally, maybe that's even Hinei Anochi Olech Lamut. I'm not interested in any long-term plans. I'm going to die one day, and therefore, I'm not interested. Okay, but here, guys, here's the tangent. I'm aware of 2 other stories where, if I recall correctly, the Chizkuni plugs this in. Okay, here we go. We have, what's it called? We have Yaakov, when he goes down to Egypt to see his son, is a little reluctant to go down. And God has to say, you should go down. Can anyone tell me, according to the Chizkuni, why might Yaakov be reluctant to go down to Egypt? Well, if they have in the background of their mind, Brit Ben Batar, what's Yaakov afraid of? I am initiating something that's going to lead to 400 years of servitude. That's a frightening thought. Maybe that's why Yaakov doesn't want to go down to Egypt. And indeed, that is what happens when he goes down to Egypt. But here's an even more clever one. When the brothers sell Yosef into slavery, arguably, what are they trying to do? They're trying to pin this prophecy on, clever, right? See, Ezra Roberts is smiling. He realized how clever it is. On Yosef, someone's going to be Avadum Inuotam Arbeh Me'ot Shana. We've got a great idea. We volunteer Yosef for the job. Let him be in servitude. So it's interesting. It's like a running theme through Chizkuni that Brit Ben was lurking in the background. That's why Esau is not so interested in the Bechorah. That's why the brothers sell Yosef into slavery. And that is why Yaakov is reluctant to go down to Egypt. Okay, we're all good at that so far? Okay.
Good, right.
Good shot. Okay, guys, we now not only have Tilo listening, we have Mordechai Blau listening also. The exciting group here. Okay? Mordechai Blau, Eitan Zeker's there.
All right.
Okay, he says hello.
Yes.
Okay. Okay, next. Now, let's do one other part of the story. Actually, before I get to one other part of the story, let me ask you guys a question. I want to find that Chazal here are real well rooted in the Pesukim. We've seen the violence of Esau. We've seen the impetuousness of Esau. What about Kibbud Avim? So far, all we've got is one argument, Kitzayid B'Fiv. That Esau brings food, he feeds his father, Yitzchak. Can anyone give me other proofs? I think there might be 4 different arguments to show that Esau was involved, in fact, in the world of Kibbud Avim. What else would you say, besides the fact that arguably he feeds him?
It still says that Yitzchak loved Esau.
Well, Yitzchak loved him. Very good, Avi. Presumably he loves him based on something. Anything else he does? Okay, how about who remembers Esau's marriage choices? What happens to first? First, he marries 2 women. What did Tanakh say about them? They were mu'at ruach. They caused, they were not exactly who his parents wanted him to marry. But after Rivka and Yitzchak send Yaakov away from Canaan to find a wife, what does it say? By end of last week's parsha, Vayar Esav ki ra'ot benot Canaan b'nei Yitzchak aviv. What does he say? My father Yitzchak does not like the local Canaanite women. Vayelech Esav Yishmael vayikach and machlat bat Yishmael ben Avram achot neviot al nashav lo lisha. So what does he do? He marries Yishmael's daughter to try to fulfill the desire of. Now notice what it said. I think it's quite sharp. Tanakh is so careful in its few words. Who does he see does not like the benot Canaan? B'nei Yitzchak Aviv. Notice who it doesn't mention. It doesn't say that this was not the will of Rivka. So it sounds like the Psukim are again emphasizing Esau seems to have a much better relationship with his father than his mother. So he sees that his father does not want him to marry Canaanite women, so he goes to marry Yishmael's daughter. So again, I guess one could try to claim, be cynical about it. He's just trying to get a good inheritance. You could say he genuinely cares about his father's desire. So you have feeding his dad, you have influencing marriage choice. What about when it comes to burial? Who buries Yitzchak?
Both of them, yeah.
So it says they both do. It's just one food for thought. It's interesting, guys. Both Yishmael and Yitzchak bury Avraham, but there the order is Yitzchak ve Yishmael. When they bury Yaakov, Yitzchak, the order of the Pesukim are Esau and Yaakov. He's involved in the burial, and he's the first. Maybe takes a leading role. Okay, last one. So you got 3 arguments for Esau as good at Kibbut Avim. The last one's my favorite. Okay, because the last one is a pasuk that actually highlights negative traits of Esau, but it still shows perhaps Kibbut Avim. When does Esau's furious, right? Because Yaakov's cheated him out of the bracha. Esau says, I'm going to kill my brother. What does he say? When is he going to kill him?
After Yitzchak's dead.
Excellent. Eitan Zeker. Vayomer Yiseh b'libo, yikruvu yemei Evel avi. The days that my father is in mourning will come close. V'hargat Yaakov achi, and then I will kill my brother. Now here's a pasuk that certainly shows his violence. He wants to kill his brother. But maybe even there's a certain respect for his father. What's the claim? I don't want to kill him when my father's alive. That will pain my father. So I think we've got a lot of evidence for Chazal's portrait of Esau. We have a lot of evidence that he's violent. We have a lot of evidence that he's impetuous, aggressive, impatient. But we also have evidence that he genuinely cares. He got 4 arguments for Kibbut Avim. He feeds his dad. He buries his dad. He wants to marry a woman that will please his father. And he won't kill his brother as long as his father's alive. Kevin, good at that? Great. Okay. Billy, who are the, you should just say hello. Besides the right to students, who are the other 2 students? Where are you guys from?
I'm Jackie. I went to Harova last year.
Great. Okay, I think I gave you guys a shiur on Shvuot. Did you hear it?
Yep.
Okay, great. Good to have you. How's University of Maryland?
Really good, thank God.
Okay, excellent. Keep up the good work there. Keep learning. Okay, now let's go to one more pasuk, and I can tell you a great chiddush that I only discovered this year. Okay, when Rivka sends Yaakov away, she uses the following phrase. Lama eshkal gam shnechem yom echad. What's lama eshkal gam shnechem yom echad? Why should I lose both of you on the same day? You guys all with me? Now, there's an obvious question here. Why in the world does she think she's going to lose 2 children or 2 people on the same day? What should she be afraid of? Esau and Yaakov will fight, and she will lose one of them, right? One will win and one will lose. So what do you think, guys? Why does she say, Lam eshkol shnechem? Why? She's in danger, apparently, of losing 1. Why is she in danger of losing 2? Anyone have a suggestion? Doesn't make sense, right? Okay.
Yeah.
So let's look at, yeah?
It could be that since Esau promised to kill Yaakov on the day Yitzchak died.
Oh my God, Ezra Roberts, he's too good for this year. He nails it again. Okay, but Ezra, you know what the problem is, guys? Here's what you always want in life. I had the following, Eitan Zek, when you go into education, remember this. When you ask a question, you always want the wrong answer before the right answer, because you want to build up drama. So you want a student to say the wrong answer, and then you get to the answer you're looking for. But this is the real answer. But if you have students who are too smart, they ruin it by giving the right answer first. So Eitan, don't call in Ezra Roberts for the first answer. Okay, so let us take a look at 3 answers here. So if you look at the Rashbam, which I just highlighted, what does the Rashbam say? Im yarogotcha, if he kills you, gam hu yereg aydei gol yadam. What's the Rashbam assuming, unlike Ezra Roberts? The 2 people who are going to be killed are Yaakov and Esau. Why is that? Well, think about how family feuds work, right? X kills Y, Y's relatives want to kill X. Maybe Yaakov's children will come and try to kill Esau back, or Esau's children will kill Yaakov back. It's the nature of family feuds, right? It's like, like it's Shakespearean tragedy. Everybody dies at the end. Okay, whether it's Romeo and Juliet or Hamlet, they all die, right? Because people keep fighting with each other. So that could be Lam eshkol shnechem b'yom echad. Okay, excellent. Okay, if you look at the bottom source, Rav Hirsch is a classic Rav Hirschian pshat. Let's go to the bottom source. Rav Hirsch says, Rav Hirsch, Lam eshkol gam shnechem yom echad, kederech shebiyom echad yiladetchem, which is actually quite clever. If it's Esau and Yaakov, what's the nice parallelism? These are 2 boys who are both born on the same day and arguably are going to die on the same day. Now, why would that be? So it says Rav Hirsch, et hanirtzach tishakel, right? The killee, the victim will be lost. V'harotzeach lo ye'od b'nah. What's the pshat? Not that they're going to die on the same day, but think about it. If you have 2 children and one kills the other, in a certain sense, you've lost both, right? Because what kind of relationship could you possibly have with a son who killed your other son? So in that sense, Lam eshkol shnechem yom echad would work. Okay, but notice what's the common denominator? Both for Rashbam and Rav Hirsch, the 2 that she's going to lose on the same day are Yaakov and Esau. However, Ezra Roberts had a brilliant point, and we'll go back to the Chizkuni once again. Ezra Roberts, you're a big Chizkuni man today. Look at the Chizkuni. By the way, just in case you guys want to know, Chizkuni is a Rishon. He is found in the Torah Chaim and not in the Merkot Gdolot. So those of you like me who like using commentaries, right? So there's an advantage of Torah Chaim over Merkot Gdolot. 3 new people you get in Torah Chaim. You get the Chizkuni, you get Rav Sadigon, and on Breshit you get the Radak. That is one of the reasons I always like to use the Torah Chaim. When I went with Daniel Trubnik, right, Daniel? We used the Torah Chaim. Okay, so what do you got there in the Chizkuni? Says Chizkuni, Lamesh Kol Gam Shechem Yom Echad. Avicha V'ata. Oh, what a good shot. Avicha V'ata. Who are the 2? Who says it's Yaakov and Esav? The 2 might be Yitzchak and Yaakov. Why would that be? Well, after all, Esav said, I'm going to wait for my father's death to attack Yaakov. So that means on the very day that Yitzchak dies, Esav will go out and kill Yaakov. And those are the 2. So I think it's excellent shot. It would also arguably, I think one of the ramifications of the shot, it's not just different ways to read the psukim, might be different ways of thinking about Rivka's relationship with Esav. If one goes with Rashbam and Rav Hirsch, Rivka very much feels like she's Esav's mother also. So even though she's upset with Esav, even though she thinks he's a danger, but there's a sense of loss if you hold like Rashbam and Rav Hirsch in Rivka's relationship with Esav. If you hold like the Chizkuni, it could be that they're so estranged, that's not what Rivka's focused on. She is focused not on the loss of Esav, but on the loss of Yitzchak and Yaakov. Okay? Well, good so far? Okay, one last point to wrap this show. You guys have been excellent to your audience. So Avi Eisenstein.
It's just, who would be the Goel Hadam that would...
Okay, Avi, you have a great question. At this point, there's nobody. I think the assumption might be that maybe they'll only meet each other 15 years hence. Maybe 15 years hence, Yaakov already will have a 14-year-old boy or something like that. Someone who could, in theory, want to avenge his father. It's true, it's a good question, but I think you'd have to plug in something like that.
Right.
Okay. But it could be Avi, it could be that's the reason why not to like that shot. Okay, let's go back to one last phrase. And we'll see, I think, a very sharp psychological point. Okay, one of the things that the pasuk says about Esav is Vayivez Esav et ha-bechorah. He does not take the bechorah seriously. He degrades it. Okay. However, let me just see where this is. Okay, I'm looking for one more shot. There might be something very interesting going on in terms of why he degrades the bechorah. Okay, which here, let me get it 1 second. It is not in Radak. Where did I put it? Oh, no, did I erase it by accident? That would be a disaster. It is... I might have erased it by accident. Let's see. Here it is, in the Chizkuni. One more time, guys. The Chizkuni's bar here one last time. Okay. Now, Esav degrades the Bechorah. Why is that? So look what the Chizkuni says. I think we're psychologically, guys, we're all like this. Guys, 3 good chidushim from Chizkuni in a half-hour share. Here we go. Davar acher, lefi shelo yerotzeh, Esav did not want, sheyachziku l'sachal. People think he is sachal with a samach. He is a fool. Al shemachoret bechorah, because he sold the Bechorah. Therefore, what would he do? He would degrade it. What? Guys, think about it. We're all like this. None of us likes to admit we did something stupid. So what do we often do after the fact? We have to come with rationalizations. So let's say I sold something really good. I shouldn't have given it up. But what do I tell you? I'll come with 1,000 reasons why it really was not worthwhile. Says that's what Esav does. Esav, at some point, starts to realize I was so impetuous. I sold the Bechorah. Really being part of this Avram destiny is really worthwhile. Oh, you know what? He convinced himself that it's not. So again, this is the crucial and most difficult thing in life, to admit you've made a wrong decision and not come up with rationalizations. Said the Chizkuni, Esav lacks that ability. That is Vayivez Esav et ha-bechorah. Okay, guys, let me sum up everything we've done here. I think in a short period, we've gotten a lot. And guys, when you read narrative in Chumash, it's not very extensive, meaning you don't have tremendous amount of details. It's very concise, and therefore close readings is the way to go. In a close reading, we learned a lot here. What do we have here about Esav? We have him as violent. How do we know he's violent? He's a hunter, and he wants to kill his brother. And the hunting either contrasts with Yaakov as the yeshiva guy, or perhaps the hunting contrasts with Yaakov as the shepherd. One hunts animals, one takes care of animals. Excellent. We also have him, he's impetuous. He wants things quickly. Maybe that's repeating Adom Adom. Haliteni might be a certain amount in gluttony. A lot of verbs in a row. And maybe even when he says, that shows him patience. Right? What's Hinei Olech Lamut? Maybe he's in danger because he's a hunter. Or as the Chizkuni would have it, as Ezra Roberts would have it, I can't wait. I can't wait till Brit Mitzrayim is over. It's so long. Who could be so patient? I need things now. Therefore, I don't value the Bechorah. So we've got the violence and we've got the impatience. And I mentioned, according to Chizkuni, there might be a larger theme here of Brit Mitzrayim always lurking in the background of Avram and his descendants. Okay, great. But on the other hand, we have Esau as the person who does keep it away, and that's also rooted in the Psukim. We have Esau as he feeds his dad, he buries his dad, he wants to marry a woman his dad likes, and he won't even kill Yaakov till his father's gone. So he really cares about his father. What does it mean, Lamesh kol shnechem yom echad? Either Rivka really cares about Esau, and she's going to lose him because there'll be a family feud, everyone will be killed, or because once he murders his brother, she'll lose him effectively and emotionally. Or, again, as Roberts in the Chizkuni, she'll lose, Shnechem is not about Esau. Shnechem is Yitzchak and Yaakov. After all, it's the day Yitzchak dies that Esau is going to go out to hunt Yaakov. Finally, we discussed Vayivez Sevet HaBechorah. Either Esau just doesn't value it, or as the Chizkuni would have it, it's classic psychology. We do something foolish, we have to come up with some after-the-fact justification. He starts to tell everybody the Bechorah is really not very worthwhile anyway. All right, as I start out this year, guys, Ezra, what do you say? Wait, I'm not hearing Ezra. Why is that?
It's my fault, sorry.
Okay, go ahead, Ezra.
Could you claim that the Gam Shnechem could refer to all three of them because of the Gam? Because
that's clever.
On that day, Gam Shnechem, also both of you on the day
clever.
that
I don't know if there's any Midrash that says Ezra's point, but Midrash often use Gam as a verb as a word that means increase, include something else in the Pasuk. Right? So it'd be a nice Midrash to say that it's all three of them. Ezra, I like it. Put in your Perishah and Sefer Bereshit, Ezra. Okay.
We'll do.
Just to sum up, guys, as I said at the beginning, one of the beautiful things about Tanakh is that every character has pluses and minuses. And it's beautiful because, that's real. That's real life. People are not perfect, not perfectly good nor perfectly evil. And it also means that we should, if we have difficult things in our lives, it doesn't mean we're not set out for greatness. Okay, we can have difficulties and still get there. So, and we can even learn from bad guys. So we can learn from Esau's keep it of aim, even if we reject his aggression and impetuousness. And with Yaakov, we'll pick up his good traits while trying to avoid some more negative character traits. Right? Anybody with a closing comment or question? Okay, Daniel Trubnik.
No, Jeremy.
Jeremy Trubnik, sorry.
Yeah. So we always say that like a Jew who's Jewish can't convert away from Judaism.
Yes.
And there's a pretty, I guess, I don't really know if it's for sure, but we all assume, I guess, that if you're a Kohen, you can't sell being a Kohen.
Okay, good.
Everything. So why in this situation are we saying that Esau can sell his right to be in the Yitzchak and Avraham dynasty?
Okay. So two things. First of all, Jeremy, that's an excellent question. Okay, I'll say two things. One, it's true in general, we assume you can't resign your Jewishness, but if you guys want a good article to read, in the 1960s, a Jew by birth who converted to Catholicism, became a priest, wanted to make Aliyah under the law of return. So the Israeli government had a very interesting dilemma. He is Jewish, but he's a priest. Like, should the law of return allow him? So Rav Lichtenstein wrote an article called Brother Daniel and the Jewish Fraternity, which discusses this question, can you actually renounce your Jewishness? That's just if you want good reading, guys, in your spare time. You could find that article. The other thing I'll say, Esau's status is very interesting. Rav Hutner has a discussion of Esau's status in Pacha Yitzchak. Sometimes Esau is referred to as Yisrael Mumar. What would mean Yisrael Mumar? He's like a Jewish apostate. So I'm not really answering your question, Jeremy. I'm really saying it's a good question, which is discussed. You know what, Jeremy? I will send you an email at some point this week. I don't remember how where Rav Hutner goes with it. But you're right, it's an interesting question. If Esau is born to a Jewish family, how does he somehow not emerge as part of Jewish destiny? Jeremy Trubnik, excellent question. Okay, worthy of more research. Okay, anybody else with a question? All right, great. Guys, it was a lot of fun learning with you. I'm going to go eat dinner with my family. Everybody keep up the good learning, and hopefully I'll see you again another Sunday.
Thank you, everybody. We'd love to have you.
Okay, pleasure. Great to see you guys.
Yeah, you too.
You too. Shalom.